Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the complex stuff, the research, and pull out the sharpest, most useful insights for you right now. Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, basically an essential playbook for financial professionals thinking about their exit strategy. It's a 10-point framework from Advisor Legacy on how you can proactively get your practice ready for sale.
Yeah, and this topic is just so critical. For most advisors, the practice they've spent years, maybe decades building, it's usually the single largest asset they own. Often, it's basically their entire retirement plan wrapped up in one thing.
Yeah.
And selling it, well, it's typically a once-in-a-lifetime event if you go into it without really planning, maybe relying on guesswork or, waiting till the very last minute.
Which happens.
Oh, absolutely. And years of hard work can end up, well, severely undervalued. Or the whole deal structure just gets compromised. It's a real risk.
Right. So our goal today is to cut through all that complexity and really focus on the specific, concrete actions you need to take. The idea is to maximize your firm's value and, just as importantly, make sure the transition is smooth. Smooth for your clients, your team, and of course, for your own financial future.
And if there's one thing we really need to hammer home, it's timing. It's all about the timing. You just can't start this process when you're already feeling burned out or just a few months away from wanting to retire. It's too late then.
So what's the ideal window?
Well, our sources, like Advisor Legacy, they really stress that the prep work should ideally kick off anywhere from, say, 12 months, maybe even up to 5 years before your target exit date.
5 years? Wow. That sounds like a really long time. But I guess if the whole point is to strengthen the value and saleability of your firm, like the guide says, then you probably need that kind of runway, right, to fix any deep-seated issues.
Precisely. You're not just prepping it for listing, you're genuinely optimizing it.
Optimizing, okay.
Yeah, you're giving yourself the breathing room to maybe tackle recurring revenue gaps or deal with potential client attrition risks, shore up any operational weaknesses that, let's be honest, buyers are definitely going to scrutinize.
Makes sense.
It's really an optimization strategy, much more than just a liquidation plan.
Okay, so let's unpack this optimization strategy then.
Yeah.
Where do we start? What are the absolute foundational pieces that kind of shape the whole deal?
Right. The first fundamental step, and it sounds almost deceptively simple, is defining your why.
Your why.
Okay, yeah. You might think, well, my why is obvious. I want to retire and cash out, right? But for a potential buyer, that's actually not clear enough. It doesn't tell them much about how the deal should be structured. They need to understand your true motivation.
Hang on. Why does a buyer care so much about my personal reasons? I mean, if the numbers stack up, shouldn't they just, write the check?
Well, they care because your why really dictates the deal structure. Is this going to be a clean break, an immediate sale, or is it more of a transition, maybe over several years, where you actually stay on as an employee during an earnout period? Think about it. If you're planning to walk away next month, that's a very different risk profile for the buyer compared to you sticking around for, say, 3 years to ensure a smooth handover and client continuity.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So the why isn't just personal fluff. It actually impacts the transaction mechanics. And the Advisor Legacy framework, it breaks this why down into 3 parts, doesn't it? There's the people relationship element, like how the sale lets you spend more time with family or friends. Then the bucket list goal element.
Yeah.
What big life goals or maybe even career shifts you're aiming for after selling. And finally, the passion heart element. Are there new interests or passions pulling you in a totally different direction? Getting clear on that defines the outcome.
It absolutely shapes the whole thing. And once you've nailed down that why, the very next step logically has to be facing reality. You need to know exactly what your practice is worth.
Okay, and this is where that timing piece we talked about becomes really critical, isn't it? The guide is pretty insistent to get a professional valuation done 1 to 5 years before you plan to exit, and then crucially, get it refreshed about 6 months before you actually intend to list.
Yes, that repetition, that update, it's so crucial because the financial stakes are just incredibly high. We see it all the time, advisors relying on industry averages or just back-of-the-napkin guesstimates. And the data, it shows they often undervalue their own practices, sometimes by as much as 60%.
60? Below the normal market selling price?
60%, That's staggering. How is that even possible? You'd think an experienced advisor would have a better sense of their own value. Well, it's often because they're maybe not accounting for what really drives value in today's market. They might just look at, say, trailing 12-month revenue, a simple multiple. But A proper professional valuation, it digs much deeper. It looks at the quality of recurring revenue streams, documented operational efficiencies, any proprietary processes you have, the overall health and demographics of your client base.
It's stuff that isn't immediately obvious from just the top-line revenue.
Exactly. And if those internal systems, those efficiencies, those processes aren't well documented and presented, the buyers simply won't see the value or won't pay for it.
So getting that professional valuation early serves as a benchmark. It basically tells you, okay, here's what you're worth today, and maybe here are the areas you need to work on over the next, say, 3 years to hit your target number.
Precisely. And it has another benefit. It helps you weed out the tire kickers, the people who aren't really serious or qualified buyers. It ensures you're spending your valuable time only with pre-qualified purchasers who actually understand and respect the fair market value.
Okay, so we've defined the why. We know the value. Now we move into positioning the practice and, importantly, mitigating some risks. Once you know your potential value, you need to articulate what actually makes your firm special. Which brings us, I think, to step 3, telling your practice's story.
Yeah, this is all about the culture, the essence of your practice. It's usually a short narrative, maybe just 1 or 2 paragraphs. And it needs to communicate your firm's core values, maybe why you started it in the first place and what really sets your service model apart. Is it, how you consistently go the extra mile for clients? Or perhaps a specialization in a particular niche.
But again, why is that narrative, that story, so important for the actual transaction? Is it just marketing?
It's much more than marketing. Think about mergers and acquisitions. Culture clash is probably the #1 reason why post-deal integrations fail or stumble. So, this story, it acts like an initial litmus test for potential buyers. If they read your narrative and it just doesn't resonate with their own philosophy or approach.
Well, probably not a good fit, right?
Exactly. It signals that the client transition might be rocky and the long-term value preservation could be at risk. It helps ensure you find a buyer whose culture genuinely aligns with yours, which is key for a seamless merge.
Okay, culture fit is key. Once that story is kind of defined, the next really practical task is getting down to the nitty-gritty of client commitments, taking inventory of client deliverables.
Yeah, this is just good transactional hygiene, really.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to identify and, more importantly, complete all your existing commitments to clients before the deal closes. We're talking specifically about things like financial plans or complex reviews that clients have maybe already paid for but haven't actually received yet. Those must be finalized.
Why is that so critical right before closing?
Because you simply cannot hand off a list of unfulfilled promises to the buyer. They don't want to inherit an immediate operational backlog, and they certainly don't want to start their relationship with your clients by dealing with dissatisfaction over unfinished work.
Right, sets a bad tone from day one. Okay, speaking of potential dissatisfaction or maybe nervousness, let's tackle a big one for buyers, the aging client risk. How do you manage client attrition, especially with older clients, in a way that doesn't tank the firm's value?
Oh, this is a major focus during due diligence. Buyers look at this very closely. The data generally shows that the average high net worth client is often somewhere between, say, 61 and 65 years old. But there's this kind of tipping point of decline, usually around age 70, where things like wealth drawdowns, unfortunately death, or significant health issues tend to accelerate.
Okay.
So if your client roster is heavily weighted, heavily concentrated at or above that 70-year-old tipping point, buyers see pretty much immediate and unavoidable revenue decay baked into the business, and they will discount their offer, sometimes heavily.
That seems like a really tough risk to manage if your loyal, long-term clients are just naturally getting older. What's the concrete solution Advisor Legacy suggests here?
The key is demonstrating that you have robust generational planning in place. You need to be proactive. Create a clear, simple, but comprehensive report, focusing especially on your top A-list clients. This report needs to show whether generational planning is actually happening, and specifically with whom. Are you actively engaging with their heirs, a younger spouse, maybe other beneficiaries?
So you're proving the relationship extends beyond just the primary older client.
Exactly. This report doesn't just reflect current revenue streams, it proves there's continuity. It illustrates future business opportunities that are already embedded within your existing client base. That directly counters the aging risk and helps stabilize the perceived value for the buyer.
That makes a lot of sense. Proving future continuity, that kind of leads us naturally into how you actually handle those client relationships during the sale itself. We need to talk about communication, and I think the guide mentioned something called the grocery store test.
Yeah, the grocery store test. It's actually a really great mental check. Picture this. Years after you've sold the practice, you bump into one of your former top clients at the supermarket. What happens? Do they stop you, smile, maybe thank you for how professionally you handled the transition and for picking such a great successor? Or do they hesitate? Seem a bit cool? Avoid eye contact.
If it's the second one, you failed the test.
You failed the communication test? Absolutely. And probably damaged some goodwill along the way.
Okay, so how do you pass the grocery store test? The guide talks about segmentation, right? You can't just blast out a generic email to everyone.
No, definitely not. You have to segment your clients, usually into A, B, and C tiers. A clients are typically your best, most loyal, most profitable. B clients might be those with growing assets, high potential to become A's. And C clients could be smaller accounts, maybe less profitable, or perhaps sometimes more difficult relationships.
Right, and the communication strategy follows those tiers.
Precisely. The recommendation is to start with personalized, individual phone calls. Call your A clients first, possibly your B clients too. In those calls, you inform them personally about your intention to sell, you reassure them, explain the process, introduce the successor if possible. It's high touch. Only after those crucial one-on-one conversations are done, then you issue a more formal letter to all clients confirming the details. This phased approach builds and maintains trust during a sensitive time.
Maintaining trust, ensuring continuity, that's vital. Because the next step seems to be all about proving the upside for the buyer. Step 7, logging opportunities.
Yeah, this is where you really build the case for the price you want. It's often not enough just to show the current existing revenue streams. To really secure a willing buyer who's prepared to pay full market value, not some kind of fire sale price you need, to provide a clear, documented roadmap for future growth within the existing client base.
Okay, so what does that look like practically? Give us an example.
Well, a really effective tactic mentioned is to create a specific detailed report. This report would list every single client who currently holds, say, a 401k account with a significant balance that's outside of your practice's current management. You list the client, the approximate balance. What does that immediately show a potential buyer?
Potential rollovers. A clear path to bringing in new assets right after the acquisition.
Exactly. It's tangible. It demonstrates a measurable path for the buyer to generate immediate new business pretty much as soon as the deal closes. A report like that, showcasing concrete future opportunities, can significantly boost the final offer price and strengthen your negotiating position on the terms.
Okay, so logging those future growth opportunities ties directly into the next phase, which feels very much like getting your house in order for the buyers deep dive their due diligence. We need to talk about listing expenses and recording business services.
Absolutely essential. And it's become even more critical because of a shift in how acquisitions often happen now. Increasingly, buyers aren't just buying your book of business or client list anymore. They're acquiring the full enterprise, the whole operational structure, the systems, the staff, the brand. And when they're buying the whole operation,
your expenses suddenly become a huge part of the valuation equation.
Yeah, exactly. If, say, 10 years ago, an advisor was mainly just selling a client list and the buyer was just going to service those accounts their own way, maybe the seller's specific overhead wasn't the primary focus. But now, buyers want efficiency. They want repeatable profitability. They're buying your system of delivering advice and service.
So they need to see all the costs associated with running that system.
Precisely. To understand the true profitability, they need a clear breakdown of typically 3 key expense categories. First, location-based costs, things like rent or leasing, utilities. Second, general overhead marketing spend, software licenses, IT support, compliance costs, etc. And third, employment liabilities. That's payroll, benefits, bonuses, any compensation structures. If a buyer digs in and sees, super high rent for the space, or maybe redundant software subscriptions you're paying for but barely using, or inefficient staffing, they will adjust their offer downwards pretty quickly.
Total transparency on cost is key. And once those costs are laid out, the next layer seems to be getting all your service agreements documented. Step 9, record all business services, pure due diligence fuel.
That's exactly what it is. You need a meticulous, organized record of every single contracted service and subscription your practice uses. We're talking everything from your CRM system and financial planning software to your phone system, your copier lease, even cleaning services. For each one, you need the provider's contact info, the exact terms of the agreement, renewal dates, and this is crucial, the exit options. What are the penalties for early termination? How much notice is required?
And having that detail really helps both sides, doesn't it? It influences the seller's timing. Maybe they need to wait until a lease expires, but it also gives the buyer maximum flexibility. If a buyer knows they can, say, cancel your expensive CRM contract on a specific date without a penalty, they have clear options for potentially migrating clients to their own preferred tech stack, or maybe consolidating office space.
Right. Transparency here speeds up the deal. Trying to hide or obscure these details, that just creates suspicion and kills deals.
Which brings us smoothly to the final step, step 10, which focuses on arguably the most vital element for ensuring that client continuity we keep talking about. Your people. Your human capital. You need to create an organizational chart.
Yes, and this is often a point of anxiety for selling advisors. They're rightly concerned about what happens to their loyal staff members after the sale, and buyers. Good buyers understand that the existing staff is often the absolute backbone of client service and retention. They want that continuity. So this organizational chart becomes the foundation for negotiating the transition terms for those employees.
But it can't just be a simple boxes and lines chart showing hierarchy, can it? The guide emphasizes more detail.
No, a basic chart isn't enough. It needs to list every single staff member. For each person, you need their title, a clear description of their actual duties and responsibilities, their current compensation salary, bonus, benefits. And then this is the really important part. You need to include specific recommendations for their retention. And critically, those notes shouldn't just restate their job title. They need to articulate the unique value that specific person brings to the practice.
Okay, so give me an example. Instead of just putting Sarah, office manager.
Right. Instead of that, you'd write something like, Sarah, office manager, processes approximately 90% of all client trade requests accurately and efficiently, also manages all new client onboarding paperwork. Crucially, Sarah has built strong personal relationships with about 50 of our highest net worth client households, acting as their primary day-to-day contact. Her retention is key for ensuring continuity with this vital client segment.
Okay. So you're explicitly justifying their role, their compensation, and frankly, their necessity to the incoming buyer. You're making the case for them.
Exactly. That level of detail, highlighting their specific contribution to client relationships and operational smoothness, is what helps preserve those client accounts through the transition and ultimately protects the practice's value post-sale.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway here for you, the listener? I mean, the clear message we've distilled from Advisor Legacy's framework is that preparation is absolutely everything. Starting this whole process, thinking about the why, getting valued, telling your story, all 10 steps starting at 1 to 5 years before you want to exit. That seems to be the key to ensuring the best possible outcome. You probably only get one shot at selling the practice you poured your life into.
Yeah.
Right. You really have to get these elements right.
Absolutely. And by meticulously working through these 10 steps, advisors aren't just, selling a business asset. They're actually doing something much more profound. They're successfully transitioning their life's work, their legacy, hopefully to a successor who's well-positioned to continue serving their clients effectively. This kind of structured framework, often supported by resources like valuations, deal support, maybe continuity planning. It's all designed really to help advisors do what Advisor Legacy calls build a legacy.
Build a legacy. That's a really fitting way to think about achieving a successful exit, isn't it? More than just a transaction.
It really is. And maybe here's a final thought for you to sort of chew on as you go about your day. If it takes potentially years of detailed preparation, defining your why, getting valued, logging opportunities, managing staff transitions, just to successfully transition your business legacy and secure your financial future, what level of deliberate preparation, what depth of why definition are you applying to the personal legacy, the one you want to build and live and ultimately leave behind for your family, your team, your community, once the deal is finally done and that next chapter of life actually begins?